At 6:17 that morning, my wife sent a text that changed the rest of my life. Plans change. You're not coming on the cruise. Aaliyah wants her real father. I read it twice. Then I set my coffee down on the kitchen counter. The counter I had installed myself 16 years earlier on a Saturday afternoon, back when Aaliyah was still small enough to sit on it and hand me screws from a plastic bowl. I stared at the words until they stopped looking like words. Then I typed back 4 of my own. Enjoy the trip. After that, I called my attorney. I know how that sounds, cold. Maybe you think a man should fight for his family. Maybe he should call his wife screaming, show up at the airport, demand his seat, make everybody uncomfortable enough to remember he exists. I did not have it in me. 23 years teaches you something. Most fights are lost long before the final sentence gets spoken. You just do not know it until the sentence arrives. My name is Malcolm Carter. I am 59 years old. I run a small home renovation company outside Columbus, Ohio. Up until that morning, I would have told you I had a good marriage. Not a perfect one, a good one. The kind where you do not examine every crack because examining it feels ungrateful. My suitcase was already packed by the front door. Blue hard shell, the one Monique bought me 2 Christmases earlier because she said my old duffel looked like something a soldier might carry home from a bad war movie. On the kitchen table beside it sat a manila envelope I had not put into any bag yet. Medical records. Test results. A folder I had been carrying in my head for 3 months, waiting for the right moment on that ship to open it and tell my wife I had Parkinson's. That cruise was not just a vacation, it was supposed to be my retirement trip. The first time in years the whole family would be together, away from work schedules, bills, grandkids' soccer games, and every excuse we had used for a decade not to sit still long enough to talk. I planned it for 8 months. I spent close to $26,000 on 2 cabins, flights to Miami, a hotel the night before we sailed, shore excursions, a dining package, and travel insurance with the kind of cancel for any reason clause you buy when you are the sort of man who plans for what might go wrong. Devon Price had only been added a few weeks earlier. The excuse was dinner. Aaliyah wanted to have dinner with her real father before the trip. Just the 3 of them. Nothing more. Then somewhere along the way, Monique and Aaliyah started talking about how Devon had never had a real family vacation, how he had missed so much, how this might be a chance to give him something. I pictured him coming to the dock and waving us off. I honestly did. Devon standing there with his hands in his pockets while the rest of us walked up the gangway. That text told me otherwise. I did not throw the phone. I did not put my fist through the drywall, even though I could have fixed the drywall in 20 minutes flat. I just stood in my kitchen and looked at that blue suitcase by the door, and I thought about something that had never appeared so clearly before. For 23 years, I was the man they called when the car would not start, when rent ran short, when a pipe burst, and when somebody needed a ride to the ER at 2 in the morning. But the second a nicer seat opened at the table, I became the man who could be left behind. Monique texted again, "Please don't make this difficult. Aaliyah has waited her whole life for this." I read that line 3 or 4 times. Here is the thing that got under my skin. Aaliyah had not waited her whole life for Devon. She had me her whole life. But in the story they were telling themselves, the years I had actually been present did not seem to count for much anymore. I called Leonard Hayes. Leonard had been my attorney for almost 20 years, ever since I started Carter Home Renovations. He had heard me ask for contract reviews, liability advice, lien questions, supplier disputes, and once help with a customer who believed minor paint touch-ups meant repainting half a house for free. He had never heard me ask for this. I did not tell him I wanted revenge. I am not built that way. Honestly, revenge was not the word in my head. I told him, I want to know exactly what is mine, what is hers, and how I walk away from this without breaking a single law. Leonard told me to slow down. He told me not to act on anger. I told him, I've had 23 years to get to this decision. There is nothing impulsive about it. That surprised even me, saying it out loud, because it was true. I had been quietly thinking about downsizing for over a year. I had the house appraised. I had title pulled and reviewed. I knew because I had checked months earlier that the house was mine. I bought it before Monique and I got married. Our prenup spelled it out plainly. Separate property. When I refinanced a few years back, she signed papers waiving any claim tied to that property. I had not done it because I distrusted her. I had done it because a good contractor plans for the roof leaking before it rains. So when Leonard asked if I was sure, I realized the honest answer was that some part of me had been sure for a long time. That text just moved the decision out of the maybe pile. I opened the account where I had booked the trip. I could not get back everything I had already spent. Not close. But I could stop what had not happened yet. I canceled my cabin. I pulled the shore excursions, booked under my name. I cut off the supplemental card. I withdrew as guarantor on the remaining balance. I canceled the dining package I had paid for. I hit the first button. My phone lit up almost instantly. Monique. I turned it face down on the counter and did not pick it up. By the time their plane left Columbus, they still believed they had replaced one passenger. They had no idea they had just lost the man holding the rest of the trip, and most of the life behind it, together. I could not cancel the whole cruise. Monique and Aaliyah had booked their own cabins separately before Devon was part of the conversation. Their tickets were untouchable from where I sat, but plenty of it was under my name. Hotel deposit, shore excursions, dining package, open balances. I canceled what could be canceled and stopped paying on what could not. The travel insurance clawed back a decent chunk, though nowhere near all of it. I will not pretend I did not feel something watching those numbers move. $26,000 does not disappear painlessly for anybody, retired contractor or not. But there was something freeing about it too. I knew I would lose money. For the first time in a long while, I was willing to pay for the privilege of no longer being used. Monique called from the airport. Once, twice, 6 times. The text started soft. Malcolm, please, let's just talk. Then they sharpened. The hotel says your card was declined. Did you freeze the travel account? This is embarrassing. Embarrassing. That was the word she reached for. Not hurt, not confused. Embarrassing. Like I had shown up underdressed to a dinner party. Aaliyah's text came a few minutes later. You don't have to punish everybody just because you're upset. I read that one twice, sitting alone in a house that suddenly felt 4 sizes too big. Not once did she ask if I was all right. Not once did she ask why I was upset in the first place. Only that my being upset had become inconvenient for the people it inconvenienced. I answered her only once. You wanted a trip with your real father. It should be paid for by the family you chose to take. She did not answer after that. Devon ended up covering the shortfall with his own credit card, grudgingly, from what I learned later. They still went. For a few days, I think they told themselves they had survived my little tantrum and everything would go back to normal once they came home. I want to tell you about 3 moments. Listing 23 years of sacrifice would take all night. 3 is enough to understand the shape of it. The first was when Aaliyah was 7, running a fever that would not break. Dead of a Columbus winter. Monique was working a night shift at the hospital. I called Devon back when he still occasionally answered. Nothing. So I sat on the edge of Aaliyah's bed changing cool washcloths. Around 1 in the morning, I drove her to the ER myself. When she came out of that fever fog, she grabbed my finger with her whole little hand and whispered, "Don't leave, Daddy." First time she ever called me that. The second was her college graduation. I had covered the last stretch of tuition after she lost a scholarship one semester. I never made a thing of it. I just paid it and moved on. Devon showed up late with an expensive bracelet and somehow ended up in every photo. When the photographer said, "Let's get one with the parents," Aaliyah pulled Monique and Devon in close. I stood off to the side, holding her graduation gown over my arm like a coat check attendant. The third was Father's Day the year before the cruise. Aaliyah posted a long tribute to Devon online. No matter how much time we lost, you'll always be my dad. On the kitchen counter, she left me a card. Malcolm, thanks for always helping. Not Dad, just a man who helped. I sat with that card a long time before I ever brought anything up to Leonard. When I went into his office after that airport text, I told him what I wanted. Prepare separation paperwork. Cut off shared account access. Confirm the house title was clean the way I remembered it. Move forward on the sale. I had been circling it for over a year. Leonard leaned back and asked, "Do you want her to come back before we move forward with any of this?" She made her decision before she boarded, I said. He slid a folder across the desk. There is one thing you need to understand before you sign anything. This is not a statement. This is your life changing. I picked up the pen. My right hand shook just a little, enough that the signature came out crooked at the end. Leonard noticed. His eyes flicked to my hand, then back to the document. He did not say anything. I appreciated that more than he probably knew. I pulled my hand back for a second and steadied it against my knee. That's another reason I can't wait, I told him. He did not ask what I meant. Not yet. But I could see the question sitting behind his teeth. 3 months before any of this happened, I sat in a neurology office on the east side of Columbus. The room had lights too bright for comfort and a poster of the human nervous system taped slightly crooked on the wall. The doctor had a kind face and a direct way of speaking. I appreciated both and hated every word. The symptoms are still mild, he said, but you need to start planning for the years ahead, not just the next few months. Parkinson's, early stage. I had noticed signs before he said the word. My hand trembling slightly around a coffee cup, my handwriting shrinking on invoices until my office manager asked if I needed new glasses. Stiffness in the mornings that coffee did not touch. A little unsteadiness coming down the basement stairs that I blamed on age until it happened one time too many. I had not told Monique. Not because I did not trust her. I wanted facts before fear. I wanted to understand what I was dealing with before I put that weight on her too. The cruise was when I planned to tell her. Both of them, really. I wanted to sit Monique and Aaliyah down because a diagnosis like that touches everyone in a family whether they want it to or not. I had packed for it. New medication tucked inside my toiletry bag. Treatment paperwork folded into the manila envelope. A list of questions I wanted to walk through. A separate handwritten sheet listing possible house changes down the road. Grab bars, maybe a stair lift. Wider doorways if it ever came to that. I was not afraid of the disease itself. Not exactly. What scared me was becoming a burden. I watched my own father lose pieces of himself after a stroke. I watched a man who could fix almost anything with his hands slowly need help buttoning his shirt. I knew what that did to a man's sense of himself. I thought Monique and Aaliyah would be my people through that. I really did. That text about Devon being Aaliyah's real father cracked something open in me. What spilled out was this. They still saw me as the man who served the family, not a man who might soon need the family to serve him back. A few months before the trip, Monique noticed my hands shaking during dinner and asked, "Are you sure you're ready to retire? You get restless when you're not working?" She did not ask about my health. She asked about the schedule, about the routine that might shift under her. I did not hold it against her then. Looking back, I understand I had been ignoring small signals for a long time, telling myself they did not mean what they clearly meant. The moment that truly turned the key came while they were on the ship. Monique accidentally left a voicemail running while talking to Devon. She must have hit call instead of hang up because it recorded almost 2 full minutes and landed in my inbox that evening. Her voice came through easy, almost amused. "He'll calm down." "Malcolm always does," Devon asked. "And if he doesn't?" Monique laughed softly. "He won't walk away from the house. He built his whole life around taking care of us." That line did more damage than any insult could have, because she was not wrong about who I had been. She understood me completely. She just only understood the parts of me she could use. I went back to Leonard's office and signed everything. House sale authorization, separation paperwork, beneficiary changes, revoked account access. A plan to move part of what I had into a scholarship fund for trade students, something I had been quietly mulling for years. My hand shook through every signature. I did not try to hide it. Leonard asked, "Does Monique know about the diagnosis?" "No." "Are you going to tell her?" I looked down at my signature, no longer as straight as it used to be. I was going to tell my family. I'm no longer sure I had one. He told me the house sale itself would take roughly 3 weeks to fully close, not a matter of days like I had hoped. "That's fine," I said. "They'll be gone 11 days. The rest can happen through your office while I'm not standing in the middle of it." The cruise was not long enough to erase 23 years of marriage. It was not long enough to undo the version of me that had spent 2 decades making sure everybody else was cared for first. But it was long enough to stop protecting people who had made it clear, in one morning, that protection had never been mutual. The truth is, I had been circling the house sale for over a year before that text ever came through. Aaliyah was grown and gone. The place was too big for two people, let alone one. The stairs worried me more every month, especially after what the doctor said about balance issues down the road. The upkeep did not make sense for a man about to retire on a fixed income, even a comfortable one. I had already spoken with a local cash buyer who showed interest months earlier. I had title reviewed. I had separate property documentation organized in a folder because Leonard likes things organized. Frankly, so do I. That text did not create a plan. It ended my hesitation about using one. I accepted an offer about 8% under market value in exchange for a clean, fast close. 18 days. No repairs. No months of strangers walking through my kitchen while I stood outside pretending not to watch. 18 days meant I could be quiet about the whole thing before anyone got home. Leonard's office handled every notice properly. Email, certified mail, digital copies of every document, a clear timeline for Monique to arrange her belongings. Nothing sneaky, nothing illegal. Monique saw the subject line of the first email while she was still on the ship. She told me later she assumed it was me trying to scare her into calling. She never opened it. She texted instead, "We'll talk when I get home. Don't do anything childish." I did not answer that one either. When the movers came, I want to be clear about something. I did not throw anything away. I did not hide anything. I did not touch a single item that was not mine to touch. A professional moving company packed Monique's clothes, Aaliyah's belongings still scattered around her old room, photo albums, kitchen items Monique had picked out over the years, linens, boxes from the basement, holiday decorations, and everything else that belonged to them. It all went into a climate-controlled storage unit, paid 6 weeks in advance. What I kept for myself was small. My father's old toolbox, a photograph of Aaliyah at 7 years old, a worn carpenter's pencil I had carried since I started the company, a wooden chair I built with my own hands back when the business was just me and a truck. My medical file. That was about it. I left the big furniture behind because the buyer agreed to take it with the house. Easier, cleaner. There was one moment that got me. I walked into what used to be Aaliyah's room. Empty now except for pencil marks still on the doorframe. Age 7, age 10, age 13. Heights climbing up the wood in my handwriting. Next to the last one, I had written, "Taller than Dad soon." I ran my thumb over that line. I did not take a picture. Some things do not need to be carried out the door to remain real. They simply live where you left them. My neighbor, Mr. Lewis, came outside while the moving truck was loading. I had known him almost as long as I had lived on that street. "Monique know about this?" he asked, nodding at the truck. "Her attorney does. Her email does. Whether she knows depends on whether she bothered to read it." He asked where I was headed. "Somewhere with one floor and fewer rooms to feel lonely in." I meant it mostly as a joke. Mostly. I found a small rental near Buckeye Lake. One story, little porch out front. Close enough to my doctor's office that appointments would not eat my whole day. Room in the garage for my father's toolbox and an old fishing boat I had been meaning to fix for years. I changed my main phone number and kept one email open strictly for Leonard. The last thing I did before handing over the keys was set an envelope on the kitchen counter. Not a stunt, not a parting shot. Inside was the storage unit address, copies of the legal paperwork, enough cash to cover 2 weeks in a hotel, and a letter I had rewritten 5 times. I locked the door one final time and handed the keys to the new owner, a young man with 2 kids and a dog barking in his car. He shook my hand and thanked me. I told him to take care of the place. I meant that too. I did not leave Monique and Aaliyah with nothing. I left them legal notice, every personal possession, and every chance to take responsibility for what came next. What I stopped leaving them was me. While I was signing over keys in Columbus, the 3 of them were still at sea. For a few days, at least from the outside, everything looked exactly like what Aaliyah always said she wanted. Poolside drinks, a nice dinner with white tablecloths. A photo of Aaliyah standing between Monique and Devon with the caption, "The family trip we should have had years ago." I did not go looking for any of it. Mr. Lewis sent me one picture before catching himself and apologizing. Don't send me anymore, I told him. He did not. Cracks show up fast when the person holding things together steps away. Devon, as it turned out, had never been the one holding anything together. He had covered the overflow charges with his credit card, but the complaining started almost immediately. He avoided dinner tabs when he could. He refused to pay for the ship's internet package. He told Aaliyah she ought to cover her own shore excursions. He got visibly irritated when Monique gently brought up what their living situation might look like once they returned. One night at dinner, Aaliyah mentioned a memory from when she was 12. A hospital stay, 3 days, fluorescent lights, beeping monitors. Devon smiled and said, "I remember that." Aaliyah asked, "Which hospital was it?" He did not know. I did. I had slept on a plastic chair in that room for 3 nights straight. Monique opened the email from Leonard's office on day 7 of the trip. She tried calling me. The number did not connect. She called Leonard instead, and he told her calmly, "All communication should go through your attorney." She hung up rattled, but tried to keep it from Aaliyah so it would not ruin what was left of the cruise. Devon told her not to worry. "He's bluffing," he said. "Men like Malcolm need people to take care of. He'll fold when you get home." That line landed strange on Monique, though she could not quite place why at first. It was almost word for word what she had said in that voicemail, that I would never really walk away, that I built my life around needing to be needed. Hearing it come from someone else's mouth, aimed at her this time, shifted something. For the first time, I think she realized both of them had been looking at me the same way, like a man too soft to leave. Aaliyah found out about the house by accident when she saw paperwork open on Monique's phone. "He sold the house because we took Dad," she said, sharp and angry. Monique snapped back before thinking, "Don't call Devon Dad like that right now." Aaliyah went quiet. It was the first time, I think, that the word felt heavy in her own mouth. The first time she noticed that calling someone Dad was not free. It had weight. It had cost someone something all those years, and she was only starting to understand who had been paying. Devon tried to smooth it over. "Your step, they flew. There was, I hope, what does he, that night, I was in, I love Malcolm. Then I turned. These days I go to physical therapy twice a week. I mentor a handful of trade students through the scholarship program. Nothing formal, just coffee and honest conversation about work and life. Mr. Lewis and I fish together most months. I still tinker in the garage, fixing small things that do not need fixing because my hands like the work. I have learned to build my schedule around what my body can handle instead of around everyone else's needs. I am not a healthier man than I was a year ago. I am certainly not a richer one. But I stopped being afraid that love had to be purchased. That is worth more than either of those things." Monique moved into a small apartment across town and picked up more hours at work. She is not struggling exactly, but for the first time in a long while, she has to build her own budget, pay her own bills, and call her own repairman when something breaks. Not every problem in her life has a Malcolm attached to it anymore. She sent me a letter a few months back. No demands, no request to get back together, just an apology, plain and unadorned. I wrote back and told her I forgave her. I also told her clearly that the marriage was over. Both things were true at once. I have come to believe they usually are. Devon drifted out of Aaliyah's life again once she stopped looking at him like something out of a dream. This time she did not chase him. She told me once that wanting to know her birth father was never the mistake. The mistake was treating a man who had shown up every day for 23 years like something she could trade in when a better offer walked through the door. Aaliyah writes to me regularly now. The early letters were full of apology. I answered those politely and nothing more. Eventually, she stopped writing only about the past and started telling me about her actual life, her job, a class she was taking, volunteer hours she had put in at the trade program. Small ways she was trying to become a more responsible person day by day. After several months of that, I agreed to meet her for coffee. She did not call me Dad right away. She just said, "Thank you for meeting me, Malcolm." "Thank you for coming without asking me to fix anything," I told her. It was not a movie reunion. It was a small, honest start. Back home that evening, I opened my father's old toolbox, the one I carried from that house to this one. The photo of Aaliyah at 7 was still tucked inside, worn at the corners. I did not throw it away. I never will. Forgiving someone does not mean pretending the love you had for them was not real. But I did not set the picture on my nightstand either. It stayed in the box, beside the other things that belong to a life I have already lived through. For most of my life, I believed love meant staying. No matter how little of yourself remained at the end of the day, I know better now. Sometimes love means walking away before resentment turns you into somebody you do not recognize in the mirror. They thought I disappeared to punish them. The truth is simpler than that. I disappeared because, for the first time in 23 years, I understood my life belonged to me too. Forgiveness opened the door back up. Boundaries decide how far it gets to open. If you have ever had to step away from somebody you love just to hold on to your own sense of self, I hope you know you are not alone. Thank you for sticking with me through this one, and take good care of yourself out there.